About a week ago, I got a text at 7 o'clock in the morning saying Reverend Barber was coming. And Reverend Barber, I told him this story earlier because this means almost as much to me as anything. So our producing partner, Rob Johnson, sent me the text and said, Reverend Barber's coming. And he said, well, we'll make sure we take care of him and we'll get him straight. And he said, no, I got it. I just want to be there. And it is my profound honor to be on the same stage with this man. He embodies what I think is the greater good. And we are going to be doing so many events with him over the next couple years, with the movie, without the movie, because we believe. And to be here, you have to be a true believer. And thank you, Sabrina and the Franklin family. We all miss Aretha. And so without further introduction, my friend, my hero, yes, sir, Reverend William Barber.
We should just give all of the people, the family, and anybody who's had anything to do with making this documentary come alive a mighty, mighty hand clap tonight and a thanksgiving. And whoever locked this film away, and in the tradition of faith, I won't need that. We ought to give, as I would say in my home church, the Lord a mighty hand clap tonight for giving us Aretha. Now, Miss Yara Allen is a theomusicologist for the Poor People's Campaign. And Robert, thank you so much for even thinking about it, and Sabrina and all for having me to come. And I had asked her to come and show it, because I want to talk a little bit before the others come about how Aretha worried a note. And she said, I can't do nothing. I'm just messed up. She was over there crying and head all down. And that's what happens when you worry a note. But at the end of the film, as she said, talked about never growing old, one of the things I hope we grabbed in that was Aretha came from a tradition that knew that when your existential reality is filled with pain and stress that constantly makes you old, you need what we call in theology a eschatology that can keep you living until you get to a place better. It is not escapism. It is knowing and singing and preaching and believing that the craziness of this world doesn't have the last say. In fact, when you know that, you can stand up and take on this world. And even if this world kills you, you are glad you had the opportunity to stand in time, because you know you'll be all right in eternity. That's what she was singing about. You know, Aretha didn't sing, she moaned. Didn't she? She moaned. She was a theomusicologist. And that's why anywhere you could hear her singing, in the club or in the church, you felt the spirit. She was singing the songs of a people. So she didn't sing, she sang. She sang the songs of a people. Did you see in the film, and Bishop Pearson, I know you picked it up, and where's Hezekiah? Bishop Hezekiah still here? Bishop Hezekiah. When people see her and she closed her eyes, it's almost as though she's closing her eyes to see the people and to see the struggle and to sing from that place. Some of you might think, well, that was just perspiration because it's hot, but when you sing in the Spirit, that perspiration is the working of the Spirit on the flesh. It is, in fact, the sweat of the people coming down over the brow. And that's why when you're fighting like that, because that's warfare against stuff, you don't wipe it off because it keeps you loose. Huh? Aretha was a singer who, as the prophets spoke of in the book of Kings, could help you hear God's voice. There's actually a scripture in the text that said, in the biblical text, that says the prophets can't speak correctly about justice until the minstrel sings properly. No wonder Dr. King didn't go to I Have a Dream at the March on Washington until Mahalia said, Doc, tell him about the dream. When Aretha sang, the heaviness of weariness and worry could be lifted. And it was so good to see her daddy come in, because her daddy, I don't know how many of you know that, when Dr. King was shot, murdered, assassinated in April, before the Poor People's Campaign was begun, it was C.L. Franklin who preached the opening sermon at the Poor People's Campaign at Resurrection City. It was C.L. Franklin that preached, and he preached a word we need to hear today, because he talked about a time when some people were facing this narcissistic, egotistical builder named Nebuchadnezzar. That's what C.L. preached that night. He said, and these boys were dealing with him because this guy wanted everybody to bow to him. He was a nationalist. And he wanted everybody to bow to him. And these three young people, these three Black Lives Matters or millennial people, wouldn't bow. And you know him, Shadrach, Meshach, and a bad Negro, you know him. And they wouldn't bow, and he threw them in. And that's what C.L. Franklin preached. King was shot. Malcolm had been shot. Medgar had been shot. Viola Davis, a white woman, had been shot. People were being shot. A president had been killed. It was hard times. And Richard Nixon was launching the Southern Strategy. And George Wallace was running from president from Alabama. And it was in that moment that C.L. Franklin, Aretha singing, but C.L. Franklin said, bowing down, we can't do that. From that text. Oh, do we need to hear that today? Huh? Oh, do we need to hear that today? When Aretha sang, the heaviness of weariness could be, and worry could be lifted, because she knew how to sing a song in the night. Anybody can sing in the daytime when everything is going all right. Huh? But she knew that special singing that comes in the nighttime. And when she sang of grace, she embodied grace. You heard it. You felt it. You experienced it. It was amazing to me tonight. I didn't know how it was going to open, Brother Johnson. I didn't know how it was going to open. But to think in this moment when there's so much division in our land, the first song we would hear from Aretha on this film would be Holy, Holy, talking about us coming together. And then the third song in there would be How I Got Over. Thank God, she said, how I got over. My soul looks back and wonders how I got over. And right now, I was reading some news that I'm glad Stacey Abrams knows something about how I got over, and Gillum knows something about how I got over, and Mike Epps be down in Mississippi. Because every time folk want to say these are the worst times we've ever seen, I want to ask you, are you nuts? We've been through slavery. We've been to the Holocaust. Don't you know how we got over? We should never face the present moment without knowing what Aretha knew, and that is remember the moments past and the things that we've already come through. Lastly, Aretha, she knew that grace that goes ahead of us. I think they call it prevenient grace. That's the grace that goes ahead of you. She knew that grace that surrounds you in the moment, and she knew that grace that follows after us. And after you have failed, that grace that says, but it's still not over. Aretha was a daughter among the sons and daughters of slaves, and she took a song written by a former slave trader. Don't ever forget that. Amazing Grace was written by a former slave trader, John Newton, and Aretha took that song, sang it through the pain, the soul, the sorrow, the hopes, and the happiness of the black church tradition. He brought slaves to Liverpool, England, and that same slave trader became an abolitionist because in a storm, Grace grabbed him and set him free from the lies of racism and the lies of oppression. And Aretha sang Amazing Grace, written by a former slave trader, and turned it into an anthem. Aretha took that song as a daughter among the sons and daughters of slaves, and she worried the notes and the lyrics. Robert, you sure you can't just worry one note tonight? Just work. Come on, worry. Just show. I want you. Just remind me. Just one note, some note somewhere.
What she did was called worrying the line. And that's pretty much what we do when we're out fighting. We're worrying that line. We're troubling waters. Now, y'all know I ain't Aretha. But I declare unto you, when I was little, I sang into that hairbrush like every other little girl. And I tied that sweater on my head and twisted the sleeves up at the top. And for that moment, I was Aretha Franklin. And I ain't ashamed to say I pretended to be her after I got grown. But if you'll notice, I may not be able to do that, but if you notice it, especially with Amazing Grace, when she started out with amazing, and she held that note, and all those notes, wherever she hit those highs, and it got a reaction from everybody, Bernice Regan said that she was a master of worrying the line. And so that's what you saw all through her singing, when she was able to sustain that note. And so it would have gone something like, and whatever else comes after that. It's just that holding that note. And in the Pentecostal church, we've taken that Amazing Grace. And how many times have you heard that note worried, that line worried? And we'll keep it going as long as that Hammond or that Leslie can hold out. So that's what she did. I know justice is coming soon. And however you take that note, you all can worry your own lines. Take it and run with it.
That's it. That's it. And so Bernice Regan said, when you worry that note and give the Spirit time and room, that's when a song can change people and change attitudes. It says to people that when you can worry that note and you allow people to bring their full self into the note, their hopes, their despairs, their joy, their sorrow, their strength, their weakness, you worry the line and the notes. To just hold the note and hang around it until it echoes through the ear and rumbles in the spirit and in of the hearers and the singer. And then what happens as you worry that note, the chains fall off and the captives are set free. And nobody could worry a line and a note like Aretha. She could worry it until you felt it, like crying and smiling at the same time. She could worry a note until you wanted to shout and run and clap, and if necessary, march and stand up. She could worry a note until the Holy Ghost just wouldn't leave you alone. And thank God she could worry a note and worried us until we wanted to love more and care more and do more for the cause of right. Aretha was not merely a performer, but she was a prophetic gift to the world. Aretha's voice worried the line and worried the note and stirred us up and shook us up and picked us up and lifted us up. After she sang, we felt like we could do anything because she worried and hung around that note and pulled out those words through many dangers, toils, and snares. We've already come. In other words, no matter what's going on now, no matter what hate is doing now, no matter what racism is doing now, no matter what Trump is doing now, Aretha would worry that note until we heard we've already come. And if we've already come through it, then you know goodness well we can go through what's it now and what's ahead of us. We can go through it because we know what we've already come through, because it was grace that brought us safe thus far, and grace will lead us home. Now, I just have one prophetic announcement I'm going to take as a country bishop tonight. She's still singing. Lord have mercy. And if you set your ear of the Spirit toward heaven, you might just hear an echo every now and then. She's still singing, because that last verse of that same song, Amazing Grace, says, when we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. So Aretha didn't stop singing when she died. She's singing now. And every now and then, if you just cock your spirit's ear toward heaven, you can hear her singing, and Fannie Lou Hamer singing, and Martin Luther King singing, and Harriet Tubman singing, and Sojourner Truth singing. You can hear them singing, fight on, 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 fight on.
I say with pride that Aretha is not only my daughter, Aretha is just a stone singer.
Amazing grace, the sound that change. Life
I never left the church. The church goes with me.